Jasper here. We are doing the ESOL exam, Praxis ESOL, and other exams for ESOL education. So I'm just going to let everybody come in to the room here. And we are live. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. We are live on, I think, LinkedIn. And then, of course, we are live inside of the Vimeo. So if you signed up for this webinar, you are watching me inside our Vimeo account, which means you received a free study guide and some emails to remind you that this webinar is happening. And you will receive a follow-up email from us with the recording and all of that. So, I'm going to just give it a second, let people come into the room. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me, and if you have everything you need, and we will get started. I do have a colleague in the chat who will help you. We will be going through our ESOL certification exam prep today. We are going to be going through the free study guide that you received with this webinar. So when you signed up, like when you put in your email and all of that, you were taken to a thank you page. And on the thank you page, you could download the free study guide and get the link to the webinar. We also emailed that out to you guys. Everybody who is inside the webinar, and I see you guys coming in. Great. I'm so glad you can hear me, everybody. You have received an email to remind you that we are having this webinar. So you've received all that, and that's great. Good morning, Camilla. Thank you for joining. So today we're going to be working from this. This is the paid study guide, but you did get a free study guide when you signed up for this. This is available on my website and on Amazon, but we will be going over all of the ESOL concepts. Well, many of the ESOL concepts you'll be tested on for the exam. And just remember, regardless of what ESOL exam you are taking or ESL exam you're taking, whether you're in Texas or whatever, Massachusetts or Pennsylvania or wherever, you are going to be tested on these same skills. The ESOL exam, second language learners, English speakers of other languages, English as a second language, it all kind of means the same thing, and the core concepts are the same. So we will be working from the free study guide today, and I'm just going to show you where to get a few more resources if you are interested in more of them. Of course, I do have the physical study guide, so let me just share my screen with you here. If you go to KathleenJasper.com, you know that I have a bunch of resources here. I have the free webinars tab here, which we are doing the ESOL right here on the left-hand side. Next week, I'm doing the elementary education. And then the week after that, we're doing special ed. So actually 2 weeks after that, we're doing special ed. I'm going out of town in between, so I won't be there that next Saturday. But on the 19th, I'll be doing special ed. And then there will be another whole round of webinars we will be doing. So this is all the free stuff. And if you scroll down, there's lots of other free webinars here for you. And then, of course, if you would like the ESOL study guide that we're talking about today, you can get it on our website. And again, my colleague, Yana, will put that in the chat for you guys. And you will get an offer code as well for 20% off. Now, this is a digital study guide. I'm going to show you what the digital study guide looks like in a second, but you can get the physical copy on Amazon if you prefer a physical copy. And you can see we have lots of 5-star reviews here. I recommend getting it from Prime. If you buy used, a lot of times it will come with writing in it. And I get, messages that say, hey, I bought your book, but there was writing in it. If you buy a used study guide, there could be writing in it. So I recommend just spending the extra $2, $3 and getting it from Prime, where you get a brand new book, because obviously you're going to want to write in this yourself. Okay. But you can also just get the digital study guide, and that is downloaded as a PDF to your computer. You can save it. You can use PDF Viewer to make notes in it and everything like that. So if you prefer a digital copy, you can get that here. We cannot give you a discount on Amazon. So the discount you're going to get today only applies to our website, because Amazon governs the publishing, and I can't give discounts on the books when I want to. So that's just one of the downsides, but you can get a physical on Amazon. Then also, we beefed up our ESOL online course. So we do have the online course, which comes with the study guide. So you get everything when you, and you can see we have lots of 5-star reviews for the online course as well. But when you do the online course, you get the study guide. And let me show you what the online course looks like. Give me one second. We just moved to a new online course platform, but you can see here, this is the online course. It's got everything, and I basically break it up into, let me zoom in here, each content category. So there's an overview video like this. Then there's a quiz for that section. You go through the quiz. Then there's a quiz explanation video where I go through every single practice test question. So today, if you like what we're doing today and you like the way I teach, you'll really love the online course. And remember, the online course comes with the study guide. So you get to download the full study guide with the online course. And again, there will be an offer code for all of that. But a lot of people just use our free stuff. So you can use our free stuff and work through this. I totally understand teachers don't have a lot of extra money to buy extra things. So, and if you've already purchased a study guide from somebody else, it's okay. I'm going to teach you how to think like a test maker today and really use our test taking strategy. So it doesn't matter what study guide you have. If you've already purchased one and you don't want to buy another one, you could still use the methods I'm going to use today. It's all good. Okay. So a couple people said they cannot hear me, but I believe people can hear me, and it says on my screen, everyone can hear me. So you may have to refresh. Okay. Yes. Rosa, check your spam. I remember we were talking earlier. Let's talk about that really quick. So I got a message from an early person that came here. She came in and said she hadn't received the replays from the other webinars she's attended. So you must have attended other webinars. Thank you so much for doing that, Rosa. Please check your spam folder. Sometimes our follow-up emails will go to spam, especially if you are using a school email address. And a lot of times school email addresses have very strict blockers on them. So you have to go to the spam. Gmail, it's usually in the promotions tab. So check there. And what you can do to make sure you don't miss an email from us is drag the email into your inbox. And when you do that, it tells your email provider, hey, I like these emails and I want to keep getting them. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right, so let's get started. I want to get started right away. It's Saturday. We're all a little tired. I know. I was up early this morning trying to go live on TikTok because I have a lot of people who join me live on these. I have anywhere from 50 to 200 people that join me live on these webinars. And then, of course, I'm live on Facebook and YouTube as well. So it's probably like closer to 300 people. But I'm trying to go live on TikTok with my iPad, and I was practicing today early in the morning, which nobody was up, I'm sure. Nobody was up at 6 a.m. doing ESOL, but I was. And so like you, I'm a little tired today. So we'll get through this, and then we'll go lounge by the pool or do whatever you guys do. I don't know where, a couple of you are from Pennsylvania, so it's probably already chilly up there. Still very hot in Florida right now. It's like 98 degrees right now. And we just got hit with a hurricane. So things are really shaping up over here in Florida. Okay. All right. So let's get started. What I want to talk to you about quickly about the ESOL exam, just a couple things to keep in mind. So today we're going to go through multiple choice, obviously, and we're also going to do the writing portion. Now, you may be taking an exam that doesn't have a writing portion, but I recommend you stay for the writing portion. And we are going to link it up in the follow-up email. So you get the writing portion in the email, because even if you don't have a writing portion, it's going to help you with your critical thinking skills to look through that writing portion, because it goes beyond just trying to memorize practice test questions. A lot of people like to, take practice tests over and over again and then hope that they get the same questions the day of the exam. And that's not really the way it works. We have no idea. Prep companies have no idea what test you're going to get. There are thousands of items in the item banks, and that's the way secured standardized testing works. And so rather than memorize test questions, I recommend really thinking about the concepts and understanding the concepts. With ESOL, there are a lot of complex concepts, and some of you are already ESOL teachers, and so some of these things already, like acculturation versus assimilation. There's also some very specific things about language and even the way we pronounce words inside of our mouths. So there's some things that are really kind of specific to language and how we speak, and then there are some generalities that happen in terms of culture and school and things like that. So we're going to talk about all of that today. All right. Somebody's asking, how long is this webinar? It's about an hour. If you have to leave early, no worries. You're going to get the replay in an email. So don't worry about that. Okay. Camilla, let us know when you're going live on TikTok again. Okay, I'm going to share my TikTok when I'm done here. I'm going to try to schedule them because I'm really enjoying TikTok a lot. So I'm going to try to schedule them so they show up in my profile or whatever. But yes, I will let you know. I'm just practicing now with it. I'm better at this form with sharing my desktop. But you can't share your desktop on TikTok. You have to do it with like a phone and an iPad, unless you're a gamer. If you're a gamer, you can share your desktop. So anyways, we're going to work it out. I'll be live on TikTok again. Okay, so let's get started. So a couple things to think about when it comes to ESOL. Number one, we are inclusive. Now, I know that, of course, you're inclusive. You're a teacher. Why would I be exclusive? Most of you are, I'm sure, doing a wonderful job in that. But there are some specific things we need to remember when we are being an ESOL instructor or when we are a general education teacher and we have ESOL or ESL students in our classroom. Number one, think about what it would be like if I picked you up and put you in a different country. And then you were 13 and you had to go to school with people who spoke that language and you were like the only one in the class who did not speak that language. How would that make you feel? You would be scared. You would be unsure of yourself. You would be completely like wanting to disappear, especially if you're 13 years old, right? If you're like a middle schooler or a high schooler, you're like, I do not want to stand out. That is like the number one thing with middle school and high schoolers for the most part. I don't want to stand out, right? So your ESOL kids, especially if they're brand new. Now, once they've been in the country a while and have learned, this might be different, but they're not raising their hands to read aloud. Okay. They're not, jumping in to do group work and share their ideas at the moment because they are just trying to survive moment to moment and not embarrass themselves. And so we want to create a environment with a culture of inclusion, understanding. And if that student just wants to sit silently, we're not saying, hey, get in the game and participate. And I know I'm like that because I'm a coach. I was a coach. You want to pull the kids in, but this isn't sports. This is reading and writing and speaking, and it's totally different. So I would honor the silent period if a student wants to be silent and not speak and just listen and kind of acquire that language through listening skills. That is a part of second language acquisition. I would also, create an environment where mistakes are okay, where I show my mistakes too, where, we embrace failure and falling on our faces and things like that. And most of you do that. It's just, being more cognizant of that. Another thing is, not applying practices that probably were used when we were growing up. For example, round robin reading, right? First person reads, then the next person reads the next paragraph, then the next person reads the paragraph, next person. And you're counting how many paragraphs until it's your turn because you're not very good at reading aloud. And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be paragraph number 7 because you counted how many kids are in front of you. And then you miscounted and your paragraph was really number 8, but you practiced number 7. And now you have to read aloud number 8. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. I was a terrible out loud reader and my first language was English. Imagine now that your first language is not English, that maybe it's Spanish or French or whatever, and someone's doing that round robin reading and all of a sudden the line is coming around, it's coming to you. Think about the anxiety and let me know in the chat or in the comments if you ever had anxiety over round robin reading. And now we know that it's a bad practice, so let's stay away from round robin reading. One way to, foster a culture and an environment of inclusion would be before you start reading aloud, you take a little list of volunteers. This is what I used to do. I would say, okay, we're going to read aloud today. Who wants to read? 5, 6 people, write it down. You write their names down and then you start to read. And as you read, you can call on those people on your sticky note who volunteered. And you can say to them, I'm going to call on you randomly. So you're ready, right? You're ready to read aloud whenever I call it. Yep, they're ready. Okay. And you create a safe space And when you do, they will be more inclined to raise their hand to volunteer. You'd be surprised how many people will volunteer the next time, and all of that. So when your first language is English, it's anxiety inducing to read aloud. When your first language is not English, if it's Arabic or if it's Spanish or if it's Creole or whatever it is, you are really having a panic attack. So just kind of be mindful of those things. A lot of times as teachers, we adopt practices that were used when we were kids. And we know, especially if you're a Gen Xer like me, some of those practices are not the best. So we'll keep the good, leave the not so good, and work on inclusion and things like that. The other thing is, another theme in this test is holding on to the second language or to the first language. So you hear a lot of things. And if you're a brand new teacher, you might hear this as well. Immerse yourself in the second language in order to learn it. Make sure you're not speaking your first language at all. When you're in my class, you're not allowed to speak your first language. And we hear that from teachers. But what the research shows is bilingual education is the best. Meaning, when we support our understanding, our phonics, our phonemic awareness, and all of those foundational skills that we have in our first language, we are better able to kind of transfer those over to our second language. And so this notion of English only practices and, abandoning the first language when you're at school and only speaking English when you come to school actually is not as effective as supporting that first language. Obviously, there's an emphasis on the second language because you need to read in English and test in English and write in English and all of that if you are in an school in the United States, right? But as teachers, we want to make sure we're supporting the first language. Now, even if you don't, you might have students whose first language is Arabic, right? You may not have any idea how to speak Arabic, but there are practices you can do to support. Number one, if a student is speaking Arabic, that's okay. You don't have to say, you're not allowed to speak that in my classroom. You need to speak English. Let's not do that. And I've heard teachers do that, thinking they are helping the second language learner by doing that. It's not helping them. That's exclusionary. Let's not do that. And then, another way to do that is to tell me about your culture. Tell me about your language. How can I support you? What are some things I can make connections with? A lot of times, if you ask a student, hey, I don't speak Arabic or I don't speak Spanish or I don't speak whatever, but I really want to support you in your first language too, and do this privately. You don't have to do this in front of the whole class. Remember, they want to fit in. They do not want to stand out. Maybe you say, hey, what can I do to support you? And the kid will tell you. She'll tell you or he'll tell you. You just have to ask them. And they might say, oh, nothing, I'm fine, and you let it go. And then maybe ask them a few days later, hey, I'd really like to help if there's anything I can do. And they might say, well, I could, maybe it would be great if I could use I'm going to use Spanish because I taught mainly Spanish speakers. I'm in Florida. So our main second language learners are speaking Spanish. So they might say, well, I'd like a Spanish to English translation for the test or something like that. Your classroom assessments, you can do that. It's totally fine. So just, try to stay away from that English only stuff. And it's not the correct answer on the exam. English only practices are not as effective as bilingual. And we want to make sure that we're being inclusionary and all of that. There's a lot of rhetoric going on about, people from other countries and things like that out in the world. We want to create a buffer from that for our students. We want our students to feel safe in our classrooms, to feel included, to feel like their culture matters, and that we're glad that they're here, that they enhance the classroom experience for not only other students, but for us as well. And then, of course, allowing our other students to share their culture and to help them. So we want this kind of give and take, inclusion, loving environment. This is not competitive sports. If it's competitive sports, I am trying to win. I believe in winner takes all when it comes to competitive sports. When it comes to school, I believe in lots of help, lots of love, lots of support, and just being very inclusionary. Okay. That's just going to be my thing when it comes to, especially ESOL, reading, those types of things. We want to make sure we're being inclusionary. So think about that. Support in L1 in order to reach L2. And when I say L1, I mean first language. L2 means second language. Just say no to English only practices and instead adopt bilingual education, lots of inclusion, and lots lots of honoring of the silent period and allowing students to kind of integrate into the class when they are ready. Okay. All right. So now let me share screen. Let's go through a couple of things here. Let me just make sure I got it all set up. Okay. Yes, I do. Okay. First, let's go over here. This is the free ESOL study guide that we are going to be working from today. I've actually blown up the questions so they're bigger, but this is the one that you have. Now, if you did not have a chance to download this, don't worry. It'll come in the follow-up email and you can do it later. I'm going to blow everything up onto the screen so you'll be able to see that. Now, the other ESOL study guide that I was talking to you about, the one that is paid, is this one. And sometimes I get emails, hey, I didn't get the big study guide. The big study guide you got to pay for, but it's got, much more extensive information here. 10 questions after each section with detailed answer explanations. If you buy this study guide, please, first of all, don't just do the practice questions. Read all this information. It's very important. And number two, read the answer explanations, even if you get it correct, because there's even more information here that's like another chapter in the study guide. So I always say, read the answer explanations, even if you get it correct. Okay. And then of course, in this, it does have the writing. Let me just scroll down here without making you guys dizzy. Sorry. I don't want to make, we have the good words, bad words. I'm going to talk about this today, but this is a full comprehensive list of good words and bad words to be looking for in the answer choice. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then of course, writing, there's some sample writing in here and I have that in the online course as well. But let's go back to the free study guide. And, there is a button here you can click. It'll take you to the paid study guide if that's something that you want. All right. So let me go to our first question. So this is number 1 in your handout. Again, if you don't have the handout, it's all good. You can download it later. Just follow along with me. Don't worry about that actual PDF. You will get it. We'll make sure you get access to it. Okay. All right. So I always like to work backwards. And in this case, I just have one word answers here. So I can't eliminate anything and I can't zero in on anything because they're just, things, 4 things that I need to do. But I can see it's like assimilation, acculturation, socialization, multiculturalism. Just helps to look at the answer choices to get your brain in the game of what you're going to be doing. Let's read the question. When ELL students adopt American culture and speak English at school, at home, and with friends, they are in what stage of cultural adaptation? Okay, so they adopt American culture and now they speak English all the time, not just at school, but at home with friends. This is assimilation, okay? And this is when, this happens a lot with younger students, especially middle and high school. Like I told you before, they don't want to stand out. They want to assimilate. They just don't want to be different, Now, older people want to hold on to their culture. They want to speak Spanish at home and they want to make sure they preserve their culture. That's a little bit different. That's acculturation, where you speak Spanish at home with your mom and with your aunties and things like that, or Arabic at home with your aunties. But in school, you kind of adapt and you speak the second language. That's when you have one foot in one culture and one foot in the other. It's not a really easy place to be. It can be very stressful, but preserving that first language and preserving that first culture is important. And that's called acculturation. Socialization is just being socialized in any group. It doesn't necessarily even have to do with first, second language. It's just about being social. And multiculturalism just means that there are multicultures in a school, in a country, in a town, whatever. There are lots of different cultures. This case for number 1, it's assimilation, to assimilate. And, some people advocate for assimilation. They believe if you're here, you should be 100% English speaking and adapt whatever American culture is. But really, we should be allowing people to be who they are and preserve their culture while also, learning that second language. All right, number 2. Sorry, my nose is itching. Number 2. Okay, same thing. I've got my answer choices here. I can't do much. I'm going to read The question, Rosa lives in the United States and teaches at a local university. She speaks English at work and has many American colleagues as friends. She also maintains relationships with people from her culture with whom she regularly speaks her home language. Okay, so she's got that dual thing going on. She's at home, she's speaking her first language. She is hanging on to her culture, but at work, at the university, and at school, she is speaking her second language. So this is acculturation. So same answer choices as this one here, but this one, she's kind of got the dual thing going on. And so that would be acculturation. All right, let's have a look at number 3. Now, number 3 is a scenario-based question. You will have a few of these on the exam. And with scenario-based questions, this is when working backwards really works well. What I like to do with these is I start with the answer choices and I just quickly glance at them and I eliminate bad words or bad practices, and I zero in on good words and good practices. Okay. So let's have a look. A, call home and ask their parents to speak with the students. Right away, I'm crossing that out. Do we call home? Do we ask for help from parents? Absolutely. But on this test and in life, we should be handling things in the classroom as much as possible, especially when it comes to second language acquisition. Sometimes the parents don't speak the second language, and they're going to need help supporting their students in L2. So, calling home is okay. I'm not saying it's a bad practice, but on the exam, we have to differentiate and scaffold inside of our classroom to meet the needs of students. So A is out for me because it has some bad practices according to the test. Calling home is not a bad practice in general. I'm just saying in a testing scenario, try to stay away from that one. B, design relevant lessons and activities aligned with the student's interests. Okay, this has a lot of good words in it. First of all, relevant lessons. If we are trying to teach students a second language, making it relevant is going to be very helpful. Making anything relevant is helpful for anybody, right? Think about professional development. Do you like to go to professional development that's totally irrelevant to your job and you can't use in your classroom? Absolutely not. Most teachers hate that. Well, guess what? Students hate it too. So anytime we can make lessons relevant and get their interests involved, we're going to be hooking them, right? They're going to want to learn more. So B is looking good. I'm going to keep it. Let's have a look at C. Continue doing the same thing and allow the students to engage when they are ready. All right. Continue doing the same thing gives me a teach to the middle kind of vibe where we just do our thing and hope everybody kind of gets there. It's not too high. It's not too low. It's not a very good practice in education. I'm going to cross it off. D, separate the students so they are working with English speakers only. You're going to see this English only. Bad, bad. Crossing out D because it's got the bad words in it. Looks like B is my answer and I haven't even had to read the question, but let's read the question just to make sure. A new teacher has several ELL students in class. The teacher notices that they are not participating as much as the other students, and the teacher wants to motivate them. Key word here, motivate. What would be the most effective? Well, relevance and interest has to do with intrinsic motivation. We talk about this in the study guide and in the online course, especially when trying to learn L2. Very important. So B is the best answer. And notice I was able to zero in on that without even reading the question. You'll find that with these scenario questions, okay? All right, this looks like another scenario question, number 4. Let's have a look at the answer choices here. A, design activities that promote critical thinking and are aligned to the academic standards. This one I love. First of all, critical thinking, good word on any exam, but especially the ESOL exam. Why? We want to make sure that regardless of the language, whether it's first language, second language, and regardless of the level at which the student has learned the second language, we have to keep pushing critical thinking. And I'll tell you, I hear this a lot, and I fell into this trap too as a new teacher. When we see people who do not speak the same language we do, we default in our minds to, they don't know that thing I'm talking about. For example, when I was a biology teacher, I had some monolingual students in my classroom. They were learning English, but they were at the very beginning stages. And we were doing, I can't remember, I think we were doing DNA replication. It was 10th grade bio. And I just assumed because they didn't speak English, they didn't know what DNA replication was. And they did know what DNA replication was. They did it already at the school they were at. They had already learned about it and could think critically about it. They just couldn't speak about it in English, in the second language. But as soon as I gave them the Spanish to English supplementary materials that are ancillary materials that went with it, they immediately were able to think critically about that concept. So we have to be careful that we don't equate language with cognitive ability. Like, for example, I have a doctorate in educational leadership. I can think very critically about educational leadership type stuff, right? But if you gave it to me in French, I'm not going to be able to decipher what's going on. It doesn't mean I don't know about educational leadership. It's just that when it's presented in French, I'm unable to understand it. So I know that sounds obvious, but when we're new and when we're in the midst of teaching, we need to make sure we're still promoting critical thinking, even though the student might need that in the first language or support in the first language. And then, of course, everything should be aligned to the academic standards. If you see the term aligned to academic standards, probably 99.999% of the time, it is the answer. Because again, we want to keep the standard high for all students, right? We scaffold, we support, we give ancillary materials, but we want to keep pushing towards critical thinking. We want to keep pushing towards the high standards that we set for our students. So A has it all. I'm going to circle it. B, continually praise her ELL students for making strides in reading and writing. I like B, but it's not as good as A. C, implement a system of rewards for students when they reach their learning goals. C sounds good too, but not as good as A. And D, encourage students to work in groups and help each other learn. That one sounds good too, not as good as A. Here's where a lot of new teachers get tripped up. They take this exam and they said, I took the exam and all 4 answer choices looked like they could be the answer. And I'm having a hard time finding the right answer. If you were to just read this question, let's read the question. Ms. Jones is a teacher at a school with a large ELL student population. What can she do to be sure she's being culturally sensitive to her students? Well, critical thinking, yes. Praising, that's being sensitive and making strides. That's being nice, right? That's helping students. Rewards when they reach their learning goal, that seems to be, helping students. Encourage students to work in groups and help each other. All of this sounds really good, doesn't it? But when we are promoting critical thinking and high standards, we are actually being much more culturally sensitive. Why? Because we're not lowering the standard just because somebody doesn't speak the second language perfectly yet. We're still pushing that student so that they are getting the best education they can get, even if they need support in the second language. What we do not want to do is reduce the standard so much that the student is not being pushed into critical thinking and then is getting a subpar education. That would be being culturally insensitive. So A is the best answer here. Even though B, C, and D are good and nice and all of that, A is the best. So be on the lookout for those keywords and think about this in the classroom. Are you doing this? Are you asking higher level questions? Are you asking higher level questions even if your students need support in L2? You could have a translation to higher level questioning if they need it. There are ways around this. You can ask the paraprofessional for help if you are lucky enough to have a paraprofessional translating for you in your room. Again, I know that teachers have a lot going on, and being an ESOL teacher, it puts a whole other layer of demand onto teachers. But we can always be doing A to the best of our ability, and that is helping all of our students. All right, let's have a look at number 5, another scenario question. I love it. These are the ones I like the best because I can actually, they look harder, but they're not once you know how to work backwards. All right, let's have a look at A. Introduce the student to the class and have her partner up with a fluent English speaker. Ooh, introduce the student to the class. Do you want the student to completely wig out and be totally embarrassed? No, we're not doing A. We're not going to, hey, class, this is our new student, Maria. Maria, say hi to the whole class. No, absolutely not. B, meet with the student privately and allow the student to engage when she is ready. I like B because you're, reaching out to her privately saying, hey, I'm the teacher. I'm here to support you, whatever you need. And then you let the student go sit down and kind of look around and figure out what's up and not make the student engage unless she is ready. So I like B. I'm going to circle it. Let's look at C. Call home and ask her parents to encourage her to engage. No. D. Have the student work alone with a translator until she is ready to join class. Okay. You might say, well, D is good too. Look, the student might want to engage right away. The student might want to stay back. Requiring the student to work alone at first is sort of imposing some sort of standard onto the student that he or she may not be ready for. And a translator is great. A paraprofessional is great. You may not have one. B is better because it's like you can do what you want to do when you're ready. You know, this is a little bit better than D. D is okay, but B is best. Let's read the question. A new ELL student has enrolled in the school. She keeps to herself and is quiet in class. What would be the most appropriate approach to take with the student? B is most appropriate. D is close, but B is better because you met with the student and then you're allowing the student to engage when she is ready. All right, let's have a look at number 6, another scenario. A, design curriculum and instruction that integrates language and culture. Another good word alert. Language and culture, they are connected. Language and culture go together. That's why it's very ineffective for teachers to say English only, please, because what you are doing is you're trying to separate a student's language from their culture. And that's impossible. We know that from research. So instead, we should be integrating them and allowing students to express themselves. And in this case, A does that. So when we are embracing language and culture as something that works together and kind of jives together, we're doing the right thing. So I like A. B, insist students immerse themselves completely in the new language. No, that's the English only. And here's another test taking tip. Words like completely, always, only, never, strong language typically is not the correct answer on most exams. Now, if they're looking for choose one that isn't correct, that might work. But 9 times out of 10, strong language, whether it's positively or negatively strong, means that it's not the right answer. So be on the lookout for that and cross it out. C, communicate with parents for an at-home plan to support the classroom. Now, new teachers might say, well, of course, that sounds great. It does sound great. However, if you have parents who have just gotten here as well, we have a lot of stress going on. Parents could be working, and this doesn't just go for English language learners. This goes for lots of people. Parents are working 2 jobs sometimes. They're not the teachers. They don't have an at-home plan. You know, like I'm an educator. I have an at-home plan for my kid because my husband's an educator. I'm an educator, right? But a lot of people, they don't know what reading strategies to do. You know, you can always send home things that support, but to put it on the parents is usually not the correct answer. I'm not saying that you don't need support from parents. I'm just saying it shouldn't be the main thing. C is out. D, choose lessons that are easily transferred to the first language. Okay, you might say D is good as well, but not as good as focusing on language and culture, because when you do that, when you integrate language and culture, and this word here is a good word as well, integrate, you're already kind of transferring it, right? And this is kind of, I don't like the term easy because that sort of alludes to like a lowering of the standard. It's just not as good. A is the best. Let's read the question. In a culturally and linguistically diverse class, what can a teacher do to ensure students are receiving a culturally responsive education? All right. Culturally responsive, language and culture. A's got all the stuff. Also, the term culturally responsive is a good word. If you see that in an answer choice, it's probably your answer, especially on an ESOL exam, but it goes for any reading exams, leadership exams, being culturally responsive. And that doesn't just mean language or different countries. It means gender. It means sexual orientation. It means also socioeconomic. Just being responsive in that way. Some kids are very wealthy. Some kids are not. Some kids come from 2 parents in the house, mother and father. Some kids have 2 moms. Some kids have 2 dads. Some kids have 0 parents. We have lots of diversity in our classrooms, ranging all different types of living situations. So we want to be responsive culturally, socioeconomically, all of that. We just want to be inclusive, 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 and celebrate all things. Okay. All right. Number 7. Again, we have these one-word answers. Can't do much there. Let's have a look. Learning a new culture's behaviors, expectations, and norms through interacting with the teacher and other students is called enculturation. All right. Now, we haven't totally immersed ourselves in gotten rid of our first culture and first language. So B is out. And we haven't done the dual culture thing where you have one foot in one culture and one in another. That one's out. Now, socialization kind of sounds like this, but socialization isn't necessarily about new cultures. It's just about being social. Enculturation is sort of like socialization, but with language and culture in mind. So C is the best answer here. All right, let's have a look at number 8. Again, we have a scenario question. Let's look at the answer choices first. Immerse students completely in L2. So L2 is the second language, and only allow them to speak L2. Strong language, also English only. We're crossing it off. You would be surprised. Now that I've brought it to your attention, you're going to see how many answer choices you can eliminate that has that on it for this exam. There's going to be a bunch of them. B, have students speak L2 socially in groups and then move to academic vocabulary. Okay, not bad. I don't hate it. I'm not going to cross it off. C, make connections between L1 and L2, focusing on L2 while scaffolding. Ooh, I love the word scaffolding to support L1. C has all the good words. First of all, we have making connections between L1 and L2. Well, what is making connections? Here's one, finding cognates. If you see the word cognate in an answer choice, it's definitely your answer. Why? Well, and again, I'm going to use Spanish because that's the one I'm more comfortable with. I know, and you're from all over the country and you have different students from different cultures speaking different languages. I'm just going to use Spanish because that's the one I've taught the most, and that's the one that I'm most comfortable with. Let's just say, and I'm going to use a very easy example, family and familia. They sound the same. They mean the same thing. They're spelled relatively the same. When we can show students those connections, and there's lots of others, there's even sayings and descriptions and other stuff you can make connections with. But when you can make those connections with cognates, it helps them understand the words better. And it helps them see there are some overlapping concepts between L1 and L2. So cognates is a good word on this test. So if you see that in an answer choice, grab it. But this says connections, and look, we're supporting L1. We're focusing on L2 because that's what we got to have them do. They got to learn the second language, but we're not telling them to abandon L1, and we're supporting. Look, if a kid does not have phonics in L1 in their first language, they're not going to get phonics in their second language. If the kid is struggling in comprehension in L1, they're not going to all of a sudden be, high-level readers in L2. We have to make sure we're supporting that first language so they can take those skills and move them over to L2, the second language. And that's what the research says. Remember, we want to be research-based. We don't just listen to a podcast or see something and go, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to do that. That makes sense. English only. Yeah, that's what a podcaster said. No. There's a ton of research out there that you can find on bilingual education that will help you. And that's the stuff you should be listening to, not just people talking who are non-educators. Okay, that's the last thing I'll say about that. All right, D, create engaging lessons to support L2 acquisition as soon as possible. All right, I liked everything until I saw as soon as possible. What does that even mean? Engaging lessons is great. To support L2 is great, but C is better because we have the support for L1 and making connections. It's going to be more effective. So I'm crossing off B, I'm crossing off D. Let's read the question. What is the most effective way to teach ELLs in a social science class? This is the most effective way, C, in any class. So we're going with that. All right, let's have a look at number 9. Again, answer choices first because we have a scenario question. A well-maintained teacher website where students and parents can access information regularly. I like it. The only problem is not everybody has access to internet at home. I know a lot of people do, but we still have areas where there is they call it a internet desert or whatever. A lot of kids don't have access. They may not have the devices. I remember assigning, this was a long time ago, I assigned as a biology teacher, we had a research paper. We did a lot of it in class, but I assigned some stuff out of class. And I found out that one of my students was walking a mile to the library there and a mile back to do my my assignment, I about died. Because think about the inequity in that. One kid goes home, fires up his laptop in his bedroom and starts typing on the computer, right? Another kid has to walk a mile to the library and a mile home in order to do my assignment. I just imposed a very inequitable situation, not on purpose. I would never do that on purpose, but I did. So websites, emails, they're great, but not everybody can access them. I learned that the hard way. Don't do it. B, colorful posters in the classroom that display important information for the semester. All right, I don't hate it. I'll leave it. C, weekly emails sent to every parent and student. Again, tech may not go everywhere. D, a detailed monthly newsletter sent home with students in the student's home language. Love it. This is about communication. D, I like the best. Let's read the question. Which of the following would be the most effective way to communicate to students and parents about upcoming classroom events and deadlines? Okay, hard copy. I got to tell you, my principal drilled this into my head when I was a teacher. Websites are awesome. You should have them. Google Classroom, all of that, very important. And I know kids get to take their Google Chromebooks home with them, but it doesn't mean they have internet all the time. A newsletter where it's paper, the kid can pull it out of his backpack, hand it to his parents, and it's in the home language. That's important too, because sometimes the student is fluent in English, but the parents are not. And this can cause a divide. And I know some of you have seen this. It's really sad. I hate it when I see it. The kid wants the parents to speak English and the parents don't, and the student gets upset, and the parents get upset. You can avoid all that by just getting out Google Translate, throwing or Chat GPT, taking your newsletter, putting it in and say, please translate this into Arabic. Please translate this into whatever. And it'll spit it out. Make sure you check it though, just to make sure it doesn't say anything that you're not supposed to say or that you're not trying to say. All right, number 10, let's have a look at this. A, allow students to use the internet to search for confusing concepts. All right, I don't hate it. I'll keep it. B, have students create a word list of confusing words they will look up after the lesson. Look up. Do we look up words? Yes, of course. But it gives me a dictionary vibe, which dictionaries are amazing. Of course, we use them. But on this exam, it's typically not the right answer. I'm just going to put a little X here. I don't love it. C, have a guest speaker come in and talk to students about Native American culture. Guest speaker sounds cool, but what's a guest speaker? Just another lecture, usually a lot longer and not as engaging as the teacher. I bet 9 times out of 10, the teacher is much more engaging than bringing in a guest speaker. Guest speakers are usually pretty boring after the first 3 minutes. Kids are excited because it's somebody different. And then all of a sudden the person becomes a boring, just person up there. So I don't like it. D, help students activate their prior knowledge to understand complex concepts. Yes, activate prior knowledge. This helps in reading. It helps in ESOL. It helps in all things because it gives a foundation for students to understand what's going on. This is a good word on the exam. If you see it, pay attention. I'm going to circle D. Let's read. Mr. Suni will be starting a lesson on Native American poetry. He knows some of the language and concepts will be challenging for students. What can he do at the beginning of the lesson to help students grasp difficult concepts? Well, activating prior knowledge is typically a beginning lesson situation. We might do a KWL chart. You might see that on the exam. K stands for, what do we already know about this concept? What do we already know about Native Americans in the United States or in this particular region or in this particular area? What do we want to know? The W is, what do we want to know? All right, let's come up with some guiding questions. That gets the critical thinking going. And then after we read, what did we learn? Did we find out what we wanted to know? These are really fun aspects. I outline them in the study guide, but a KWL chart, that goes with activating prior knowledge because the K is, what do we know already about this topic? All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and take some questions here. Okay. Somebody was talking about, yes, I had that experience when I came to the US. I think you're talking about when I said English only, which is not a great experience. I hated it when teachers would say speak English only, even with my friends. Yes. If I want to buy the physical book, can I get the online book as well, or do I have to buy them both separately? We don't offer them together. So you have to buy them separately, but I would just get one. You don't need both. They're both identical. Okay. All right. Doesn't look like you guys have many questions. If you do have questions, throw them in the chat. If you have questions on Facebook or YouTube, I will get to them when I'm done because I can't switch over right now, but we do answer everything. So if you have a question and you're watching me on Facebook, you can put those in the comments. Okay. Now, let's talk about the writing because your test might have a writing portion. Even if you don't have the writing, stick with me because it's going to help you with the critical thinking. For the writing portion, I want you to continue to work backwards. Anytime you are given an essay, and this goes for Praxis Core, PLT, PPR, any of the exams where you have to do a writing portion, don't get caught up in the scenario and the data and everything they're showing you. First, go to the task. Somewhere in there, and it might be towards the beginning. Some tests put it up towards the beginning. They'll say, for the following task, you need to do X, Y, and Z. What you want to do is find the bulleted list of things you are supposed to do. And I made this one really hard, actually, because I want to make it harder for you so that when you're presented with it online or on test day, you're able to do it. What you want to do is find the task first. Figure out exactly what you're supposed to do. If there are 3 bullets, make it 3 paragraphs so that you know I hit bullet number 1, I hit bullet number 2, and I hit bullet number 3. All right. If it's, you got 2 things going on inside each bullet, that's okay. Use your scratch paper next to you to jot down ideas. 9 times out of 10, when you are looking at the task, you can start to formulate a plan without reading all of the scenarios and all of the data yet. How do I know this? Well, let's think. If it's an ESOL exam, you are going to be asked to differentiate, scaffold. You're going to need to use some of those foundational reading skills, cooperative learning like literature circles. You are going to have to support L1 in order for L2 to be acquired. So regardless of the exam, it doesn't matter whether it's ESOL in New York. I see somebody's asking about ESOL in New York or ESOL in Texas. The same things are being assessed here. And we want to think about those good words that we just talked about in the multiple choice. So being culturally responsive, honoring the silent period, making connections between L1 and L2, using ancillary materials, scaffolding, differentiation. All of those words are going to help you show your knowledge as an ESOL teacher when we bring it over to the writing task, okay? All right, so let's have a look at the prompt. Let me share screen again. And, okay, this has got a lot of words on it. I'm not going to read this to you because I know how everybody loves to have their PowerPoints read to them as teachers. It's like, please send it in an email, right? But I just want to go over the 1, 2, and 3, okay? It's going to be some sort of, you're a teacher. You're an ESOL teacher or you're a general education teacher with several ESOL students in your class, okay? And it's right away, I want to go to the paragraphs here, and I have 6 paragraphs here, all right? I have identify one area of strength the students share in English language arts, citing specific trends. All right. Describe an appropriate instructional strategy or activity to use with this group. All right. We have the word group. So we want to think of perhaps some cooperative learning activities. I like literature circles. That's one I am really good at writing to. What's a literature circle? Well, and it's not just for literature, literary text, it's for any text. You put students in groups of 5 or fewer, and you have them read and analyze text together. Each student has a job. Each student contributes to the overall product of the group. They're reading incrementally, discussing, helping each other, note-taking. It's like a whole analyzing of whatever they're reading. Now, these take a lot of practice. You can't just say, hey, everybody get into literature circles and expect the kids to know what they're doing. In order for the kids to get good at this strategy, it takes practice. Maybe mid-year, they start to really understand how to do this, but that's what good strategies do. You do them again and again, you tweak them, get better, do them again and again. Just remember that, new teachers, you're not going to open up a new strategy right out the box and it works perfectly every time. Literature circles are a great strategy, but they take lots and lots of reinforcement and practice. And again, we want to make connections to other texts, ideas, cultural perspectives. These could be guiding questions. It's the 5th grade standard. I could take this standard and turn it into a guiding question for my literature circle. I haven't even read what's going on yet. I already have an idea of what I'm going to do. And what I can do is I can adapt that literature circle really to anything. You can scaffold within the literature circle. You can walk around and support while students are in the literature circle. So just, it's an overarching strategy, and I can tailor it to whatever I need. All right. Explain how the instructional strategy or activity you described would effectively build the group's identified strengths. All right. It's going to help with reading comprehension. It's going to help with analytical skills, critical thinking skills, socialization skills where they're speaking to each other, culture and language, intermingling those, finding connections. It does a lot of things. Okay. And remember, you can say whatever you want as long as you back it up with, for example. You want to get specific as to why it helps. And then identify one student in the group for whom you would differentiate. All right. So there's going to be one kid who maybe needs a little bit more. Well, how would I differentiate? I would maybe do scaffolding exercises with a less intense text, or maybe a grade level down if the student needs a little bit of help. Still keep the student at grade level when they're in the literature circle, but maybe there's some ancillary material there for them. So I'll figure that out once I read it. Describe how you would differentiate your lesson to accommodate. So that kind of goes here. These 4 and 5 are kind of the same. So I'd probably smush them together. And 6, explain why the differentiation strategy you described would effectively address. Okay. Here's the thing about these writing tasks. They're always going to ask you for a strategy. And then 100% of the time, they're going to ask you to justify it. And they're going to say, explain why you used it and why it's helpful. All you have to do is explain why, maybe using leveled text and scaffolding support would help the student. Well, it would help the student with their maybe fluency. They could get through the text a little bit easier. It would help them with their comprehension. It would support their reading deficits so that they had a little bit easier text to read from, while also examining the on-level text. If you are there to support, let's say you did a small group instruction or a one-on-one with the student, that's going to help reinforce the skills the student needs. Just a quick explanation that it reinforces the skills. That's all you need. It's just a quick explanation. All right. This prompt is very long. So this is the first part of the prompt. Here's the second part. All right. So we have Carlos is 10. He arrived in the United States from Mexico at the beginning of first grade. So he's been here about 4 years. First grade is 6 years old. He's 10 now. So he's been here 4 years, probably doing pretty good in second language acquisition, but still, 4 years is not, he may or may not be fluent. Who knows? He might. Home language is Spanish and English is his second language. He attended kindergarten in Mexico. He received ESL instruction as part of a bilingual education program. He moved to his current school, which does not offer bilingual education classes. He received ESL instruction as part of the ESL program during the last 2 months of fourth grade. Okay. So it doesn't really say that he's struggling with anything. It just says that he went from bilingual to, just English only. So that could affect him, but we'll see. Okay. Marie is 11 years old. She's from Haiti. She speaks Creole. Her first language is Creole. She attended a French-speaking school in Haiti where she developed some initial language and literacy skills in French before her family moved to the United States. So she got some of those foundational skills in French. English is her third language. This is another thing you'll find with these students. They don't just speak 1, 2 languages, 3, 4. They are very skilled in language acquisition. So, that whole thing of like, oh, we can't do critical thinking. Yes, you can. These kids are smart. Marie has received ESL instruction as part of her ESL. Okay. Ying is a 10-year-old intermediate English language learner in the United States. Her home language is Mandarin Chinese. She received ESL instruction as part of bilingual. Okay, it's kind of the same thing. She received grade level literacy skills, end of year assessments. All right, so she's pretty good. She's on level, even though her home language is a logographic, which means little pictures. In the middle of fourth grade, she received ESL instruction as part. So they're all kind of the same. They're all 10 to 11 years old. English is their second language. They've had some bilingual education. They're doing good. It sounds like Yin is on level. Didn't really specify if Carlos is on level. Marie could be a little below level, but we'll see when we look at the stuff here. Okay, this is the third part. So we have an explanation of what each thing is: entering, emerging, transitioning, expanding, commanding. Entering is the lowest level. So we're actually going up. Oops. When we go down. So entering is the first, emerging is next, transitioning, expanding, and then commanding. And then, of course, we have listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Just so you know. Oh, let me scoot down there. Oh, let me zoom out. Trying to get it for you. Okay. Listening comes first, speaking comes second, reading comes third, and writing comes fourth. That's the order in which students acquire these skills, just so you know. Listening comprehension, then speaking, then reading, then writing, right? And then we have a little section here where Carlos, in listening, he's commanding, so he can understand what is being spoken to him in second language. Speaking, he's close. He's in expanding, as we can see here. So he's a high level. Expanding and reading, transitioning and writing, so a little bit below. Writing is the last thing to happen. So that's good. And then overall proficiency level, he's expanding. All right. Marie is a little lower. She's in expanding, and everything else she's in transitioning. And then Yin is transitioning, emerging. Okay, she's emerging and speaking. So something's going on here with speaking. Sometimes, we can be better at reading and writing, and the speaking can lag behind. Not everything is a perfectly linear process, all right? So both Yin and Marie are transitioning, and Carlos is the highest at expanding. However, they're young. They have only been here, from 3 to 4 years. This is kind of like normal. This is how it happens. Nothing stands out to me as like, oh my gosh, this kid is at the lowest level. They are just moving through things. We want to have an understanding of what's going on. But if we had all of them in a group together, they would probably do pretty well. Carlos would probably emerge as a leader. If he's in a literature circle, like I mentioned before, you could probably make Carlos the administrator this time around. We certainly want to switch that role up. But, and then maybe Marie, she's got a writing. They're all transitioning in writing. Maybe Marie could be the note taker, or Yin could be the note taker, because I believe in here it said she achieved her literacy goals, and even though she has a Mandarin writing system. So either one could be a note taker, and they would work really well together. But Carlos would probably emerge as a leader just because he has a little bit more command of the language. All right. So now what am I being asked to do? Here's some more information. It just talks about Carlos has an interest in science experiments. He likes illustration. He was one of only 4 elementary students to receive a scholarship. So he's cooking. Carlos is cooking. He's moving through. Marie has won a scholarship as well for scientific discovery. Okay, she likes science as well. That's that informational text that's leading me towards informational text. Marie's specialty is creating complex models of ecosystems. All right. So again, just because somebody doesn't speak our language perfectly doesn't mean they're not thinking critically. She's building ecosystems. She has started her own research reports on various environmental topics. So again, science. Yin has become an active participant in classroom discussions. All right. So even though her speaking is in emerging, she likes classroom discussions. So she's getting in there and she's doing it. That's wonderful. She could be perhaps someone in the group who helps to facilitate discussions, just thinking where her strengths are. She's interacted with other Mandarin speaking students. So she's kind of taken a leadership role there. This new environment has been an adjustment for her, but she has now made several friends. She likes historical fiction. All right, we're looking at social studies now. So she's more, these two are science. She's social studies. We're encouraging her to diversify her reading by introducing her to historical biographies and memoirs. All right, so she likes to read. So this is great. All right, so now for my sample response. It said in my directions, write a 400 to 600 word essay where we answer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we need to identify an area of strength, Describe an appropriate strategy for the group. I'm going with literature circles because that's the one I'm most comfortable with. Then explain why that activity would be effective. I'm going to explain why literature circles are awesome. Then I'm going to identify one person whom I have to differentiate for, and then what that differentiation is and why it would help the student. All right, let's do it. Sample response. The group of English language learners is 5th grade class. Okay, this is kind of wordy, but I like to start with a topic sentence. You could just start here. Evidence shows that each of the students participates actively in speaking activities related to content areas like science and social studies. So I basically said they're engaged in science and social studies. Then I get specific. And all I'm doing is summarizing what they gave me. For instance, Carlos demonstrates understanding of scientific concepts. And I get in a little bit more there. Marie engages with her peers, offering science advice on science projects. Yin has become increasingly comfortable speaking in class, particularly on social studies. This trend suggests that these students possess strong speaking and listening skills. All right. Now, to support that, and to go with the 5th grade standard, which they gave me up here, which is, where is it? 5th grade. Where did they say? Oh, it's right here in the second bullet. Sorry, I knew it was somewhere. The second bullet, and that's the second paragraph I'm trying to do here. It says, do something to help these students meet this 5th grade standards, make connections to this area. Text, ideas, cultural perspectives, and eras and personal experiences. So that's going to be my second paragraph. To support the achievement of the 5th grade standard, then I list it. That takes up a little space. An appropriate instructional activity would be literature circles. Remember, I told you I'm good at writing about literature circles. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I explain what a literature circle is. Okay. In this activity, students would read a historical or biographical text, work together in small groups. Each kid has a role. I've got a summarizer, a connector, and a questioner. You could do an administrator, note taker, reader, doesn't matter. Each student will contribute. That's very important in a literature circle. Everybody's has a role, and they're going to discuss and summarize the text. Okay. That's it. Next paragraph has to do with the third thing here. Explain how it would effectively help the students. All right. This strategy builds on the group's strength of oral communication. And by assigning the roles such as connector, the students are encouraged to draw personal and cultural connections. Literature circles offer collaborative and supportive learning environments. So I just go in here and I list those. Okay. Next paragraph is going to be identify one student who needs differentiation based on what we saw in the data. While the literature circle strategy would benefit the group, differentiation is necessary for Yin, whose reading needs differ from those of her peers. So she's got a little bit of a lower reading score, as we saw in the data. So to address this, I would introduce scaffolded reading activities that focus on short, accessible information. So I'm just going to shorten her information a little bit. She can still participate in the overall strategy, but we want to give it in like chunking the text. And then I go in, these texts will be broken down into smaller sections. And then I tell you why this differentiation strategy works. It's going to effectively address Yin's reading needs by providing her with additional support to comprehend and analyze information. And then I go further. By breaking the text into manageable chunks and offering guided questions, Yin could focus on specific reading skills. So all I'm doing is breaking down the strategy that I know. Chunking text, that's what chunking text does. And that's it. Now, this is a big one. And some of the ESOL questions are big. You know, look, we had this, then we had this, then we had this, then we had this. Some will just have a quick scenario in there, and you just have to write to that. I chose this one because it was a lot bigger, and I wanted to challenge you. Now, I also am going to send this to you in the follow-up email, so you'll be able to look at my full sample response along with all of the things that they gave you in order to write it as well. And it will be blank, so you can go in and try that on your own. All right, let me stop sharing. We're a little bit over. Okay, here we go. So it doesn't look like anybody has any questions here. I hope that you guys found this helpful. Let me show you a couple more things before we sign off. Thank you for your patience. First, I want to show you my YouTube channel. This is where you can get lots of free videos, and this video will post here. I also have old subject area exam stuff here for you. I have a test strategy playlist that I highly recommend. Teaching, reading, writing an essay, all of that. Lots of good videos here. I also have a TikTok account that I am trying to beef up. I love TikTok. It's been a lot of fun. Shorter videos here, lots of different things from math to ESOL to everything. I just went live there. I told you that I tried to go live and it was okay today, not as good as I am here. Of course, we also have our online courses. Make sure if you are struggling with ESOL, you check out our online course. Remember, it comes with the digital study guide. We also have... Let me go here. That will send you the links to that. You can use your 20% off coupon. We also have just the study guide. If you want the physical book here, we have that either in physical form on Amazon or the digital copy. And I wanted to share with you guys a couple more things here. Facebook, Instagram, all that, I'm there as well. One more thing, I just updated our Praxis Core. I don't know if any of you need Praxis Core, but this one has a whole extra writing section with tons of new writing prompts. So everything, the math is the same and the reading is the same. The only thing that's changed is the writing. There's an additional practice test and more writing prompts. So I beefed this up. This is the new core. Check it out on our website or on Amazon. And then for all you new teachers, this has gotten a lot of buzz. I mean, for me, there's about 75 5-star reviews on this one. This is a book I wrote for new teachers. It's just a simple how-to guide, lesson planning, classroom management, teacher evaluations, just all the things that I know to be true about the classroom. Easy to digest. It's just a little quick book you could read a couple days, have it at your desk. A lot of people like this, so I wanted to let you know this is available on Kindle Unlimited for free if you have Kindle Unlimited, or Kindle or physical copy on Amazon. So we'll link that up in the email that you guys are going to get after this is over. All right. So I'm glad that you guys have enjoyed the webinar. That's okay. If you have to run, that's all good. Someone's asking for flashcards. I do not have flashcards, but I am looking into building those, but I don't have them yet. But the study guide is broken up with a lot of visuals. And tables and things like that. So it's a very visual book and a lot of quick tips, a little things to pull out of there. So it's definitely worth it. But I do know people want flashcards, so I'm working on that. But that's something that it takes a different kind of publisher than Amazon. Right now, I'm self-published on Amazon. These are relatively easy to get out into the world, but I hope to have flashcards soon. All right. All right. Thank you, Kathleen and Yana, for everything you do for us. Of course, Rosa, thank you so much for attending. That is it for today, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to check out the links that are coming to you in the email. For those of you who are on social media, check the links in the description. You'll get everything there. And if you want to get the free study guide and all of that, the links are in there. All right. Awesome. I'm glad you found this helpful. And let me know if you have any questions. info@kathleenjasper.com. We will help you with any questions you have. And I hope you have an awesome Saturday. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Bye.